the producer, Ingo, was asking me what I was looking for. And I said, you know, I'm not afraid of the ugliness of the sound sometimes. And he said, which I can't believe, but he said, it's the first time that someone's asked me to make it uglier. But actually, I think that those sort of dirty bits make the purity all the more special. This is the standard natural horn design from the end of the 18th century through to the middle of the 19th, really, or even beyond. You brought your bag of crooks to work with you, and it depends what key you were in, which one you took out of the bag. And yeah, this design remained standard for ages, but definitely this is the kind of horn that Beethoven would have recognized when he wrote his horn sonata. And it's just a very simple design, and actually it's an extremely light instrument. And I thought that it would be a better sound, even though it's French, for the Beethoven than my other natural horn I'm using, the Cor Solo. Beethoven horn sonata is fairly well known, and it has been recorded a few times on the natural horn. But the fun thing about playing these old instruments is that even if it's fairly well known as a natural horn piece, it still shocks the audience a little bit. You know, it still makes these quite remarkable noises, and I think some people much prefer it on the modern horn, and some people much prefer it on the natural horn. I mean, some parts of it are considered comic because of the amount of hand stopping, the amount of extra work you have to do to get the notes, which are between the open notes, if you like, to make them work. So I'll just demonstrate a bit, and it's up to you whether you find this amusing or not. Oh, there's a bit of water in it, but yeah, you'll notice that basically the majority of notes in that run, which you hear on the piano immediately afterwards, are in fact hand stopped. But if they all sound open, then it seems like quite a simple, not to say trite passage. If I played that passage on the modern horn, every note would sound as open as the first notes. So, and then if you just imagine, so those notes would have the same timbre as la, but then of course harmonically, it's very, very interesting to have that change of timbre as well. So,
and Beethoven meant that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that he knew what he was doing when he wrote for the natural horn. The really interesting thing about the Beethoven horn sonata is that he also arranged it for cello. So clearly it's not crucial to his sort of musical language in this piece to have stopped notes. But on the other hand, from a horn playing perspective, I found it really enabling that you suddenly have all these interesting sounds to play with. And the great thing about the natural horn is it's not just a question of some notes being closed and some open, but that you can have a whole series of different tone colors on the stopped sounds. So a good example is F at the top of the stave. Is one. Is another or. I've still got some water in it. But you see, it's a sort of extra palette of colors that you can choose on all the stop notes. I mean, all that you've got on an open note really is a change of dynamic by comparison. It's a different aesthetic, you might say, if you're as pretentious as me. But on the other hand, I think it's great if you can learn to love those aspects, then it just makes, it can broaden your mind. And I think that for me to then go back to modern horn and take more risks, because the Beethoven horn sonata on modern horn, which I'm about to play on modern horn actually as well, I think good. I think it can be too bland, and I think once you've heard it, especially once you've played it on the natural horn, you realise how much character it can have, and I think you need to recapture that. I don't think it's okay just to ignore what went before, just to ignore the valveless horn. I think you should at least know what it was all about before you choose to use valves.